Welcome to this selection from the Stereoscopic Society's annual exhibition for 2024. Digital images were entered in 6 individual categories. These will be shown interspersed with sets of images from each of the selectors, and also entries in the Images on a Theme category and slides. The category for 2D to 3D converted images was subdivided into conversions with significant author input, Leopix conversions, and AI creations. The first category is digital, people, pets, and domestic animals. This attracted 31 images from 20 entrants.
Farrier is by Derek Medhurst. Derek explains, Farrier Tony Fisher is working with his mobile smithy at Andy Irvin's Shovelstrode Racing Stables in Sussex. Ian Bailey took this photograph of the Lady of the Manor at Durham Park, South Gloucestershire. This driver on the Churnet Valley Railway is waiting for the off. Picture by Mike Hilliard. Curious Like a Child is the title that Maria Teresa Bogatic from Italy has given her image. Neil Crick entitles his picture Getting the Point. The Perfect Match, a story of feline and canine bromance. This image is the work of Valentina Carter from Italy. Photographer Rankin, in his Carnaby Street studio, was captured by Neil Crick. Denis Alishev calls this portrait artist. With Pride is Girish Jerram's title for this image. And Bob Taylor's snappy title for this image is Suit Commute. What's Going On is by Mike Hilliard. Mike's grandchildren Beatrice and Eleanor are intrigued by what's happening in the next compartment. Girl and Her Dog is by George Themelis. Dennis Bosma has photographed koi fish in a pond at Matsumi Park, Tsukuba, Japan. Off-Duty Guard Dog is by Terry Turnber. The next 2 images were commended. First, George Themelis has photographed First Cousins. Second, this nice feline reverie by Vanessa Grine is entitled Monty's Dream. There were 2 runners-up in this section, and first, George Themelis shows us Happy Poochie. Derek Medhurst took this fine action photograph he calls Tamaris Jumping to a Win at the penultimate fence at Plumpton Racecourse. The category winner is Lee Pratt with The Swimming Hole.
This set of images are by selector Greg Foster. The next category is digital scenery, and here 48 images were entered by 31 stereographers.
Lee Pratt calls this image Rock Ducks. Maria Teresa Bogatic shows us Paradiso. Derek Medhurst says, "The sign at my local station shows the impact on the railway of a light covering of snow in March 2023. The first train due has been cancelled, the next one is expected half an hour late." Roy Smith has photographed Fiord Village. "Quite tall, isn't it?" says Helen Beauville. iPhone charger taken at the pond in Central Park, New York. This image, Under the Rainbow, was taken by Helen Beauville as a cha-cha on her iPhone whilst walking home from the shops. The view from Bryce Canyon was photographed by Terry Turnber. This gloriously coloured view of Vermont woods is by David Starkman. Ian Bailey has photographed this woodland walk. Shinobazu Pond in winter was photographed by Momoko Nishio. This view, taken at the quaint North Wales resort, David Starkman calls Port Merion Afternoon. Andy Blakemore calls this image Snowy Path. Terry Turnber has captured this hiker enjoying the view from the top. Autumn Gold is Andy Blakemore's title for this image. Stephen O'Neill has captured this rainbow. Helen Beauville shows us Boats Before Sunset, taken at Hull Marina on a cold December afternoon. A Lazy Afternoon is by Keith Webb. Valentina Carter shows us Mont Blanc, as seen at dawn from an aeroplane. Epic Tintagel is by Kevin Harvey. Vanessa Grind shows us A Big Splash. Californian Forest is by Denis Alishev. The next two images were commended. First, Delicate Balance is from the camera of Lee Pratt. Next, Brian Davis calls this image Misty Walkway. There were two runners-up, and the first is this dramatic fjord view by Roy Smith. Second, Meteora Divine Rocks is by George Themelis. But the winner is Susan Pinsky with Riding Wave.
In the themed images category, members are invited to enter a set of up to 4 images with brief supporting text to illustrate their theme. There were 20 entries from 19 entrants.
Dennis Bursma's theme is typical Japanese scenes taken at the 24th ISU Congress. First, Taiko Drum Group at the opening ceremony. Next, a sake brewery. The Sugidama, literally a cedar ball, serves as a sign for sake breweries. This statue is a guardian at the Yomaimon Gate at the Nikko Toshogu Shrine. Finally, a food stall serving skewers at the Tsukuba Food Festival. Neil Crick's theme is 3D photography of man-made sculpture and the way that their perspective is enhanced by 3D. If recorded in 2D, they would appear flat and lacking in depth. Neil's cameras are two Sony a6000s with mechanically linked zoom rings and with the Sony shutter cable link for synchronization. Gisela Ville's theme is Medieval Tournament, and she tells us these knights in armour are not stuntmen performing and posing for money. What you see are scenes from real championship of amateur knights organised in clubs. They travel from afar, camp on the field and cook medieval food on an open fire. Most bring their family and the kids act as squires. Valentina Carter from Italy has chosen Rome as her theme. She tells us Rome is full of art and history. Here you will see 4 statues that show its beauty and meaning. First is Nilus, the god of the river Nile. Next, Dea Roma, a modern statue of the goddess Roma, the city's symbol. Third, the Pieta, a masterpiece by Michelangelo showing Jesus and Mary after the crucifixion. Finally, the Trevi Fountain, a magnificent fountain with a scene of Oceanus and his sea creatures. These pictures taken in Lisbon are on Brian Davis's second theme, the base of the monument to the Marquês de Pombal, Lisbon. The Marquis of Pombal was the Prime Minister responsible for the rebuilding of Lisbon following the Great Earthquake of 1755. The base of this monument is decorated with allegorical images depicting Pombal's political, educational and agricultural reforms. Brian Dunster's theme is images taken through windows and openings. The first was taken on the battlefield line in Leicestershire. The second is the view through the windows at Berlin's Hauptbahnhof, the main railway station. The third picture is a view out onto Lake Constance. And the last Brian calls Through the Portal. The next 2 groups of images were commended. First, Kevin Harvey's theme is the Longleat Festival of Light, Narnia Lanterns. For scale, the White Witch's Castle lantern was about 8 metres tall. The lanterns are life-sized painted structures which have internal illumination. The internal illumination produces the fantastic effects as shown here. One section of the 2023 display was dedicated to the Narnia stories by C.S. Lewis. Carl Bromwich's theme is the Bradford Festival, which takes place in the city centre every summer and is a celebration of the performing arts with performers from all over the world. Carl says, "It's well worth a visit, and don't forget your camera." There were 2 runners-up in the Images on a Theme category, and the first is Rob Cayley. His theme is the Battle of Britain Monument. This was sculpted by Paul Day and was unveiled in 2005. The first image is Scramble. The monument is 25 metres long and a total of 13 scenes are depicted on its narrative relief panels. The second image shows a large pilot's head and plotters. Next, Gunners. And finally, Observers. The second runner-up was Bernard Foote, and his themed images are macro photos of flowers using ultraviolet light. This requires an adapted camera and a UV transmitting filter. After the daffodil, Nasturtium. All the images use focus stacking to provide an adequate depth of field. Next, Snapdragon, and Bernard comments, UV often shows details and textures not visible to the human eye. Finally, Wood Spurge. The shorter wavelength of UV makes fine detail more visible, even though you have to use vintage lenses of simple construction. But the winner of this category was John Chapman. His theme is the anatomy of a London Pride flower. In this series, 3D images are made by producing stacks of images by advancing the camera system in steps as small as 4 micrometers apart. Up to 200 images may be acquired for combination using the free software Combine ZM. The anther on the end of the stamen, seen here, produces pollen grains. When a pollen grain settles on the sticky finger-like projections on the stigma, which is the top of the pistil, it produces a long tube through which the ovum in the swollen base of the pistil is fertilized. Finally, another view of the anther with its pollen grains, which are 37.5 micrometers in length.
Now we have the category Digital Buildings, Inside and Out. This attracted 30 images from 24 stereographers.
St Paul's, London is an iPhone Cha-Cha by Peter Blair. Clara Wang shows us the heart of Disneyland. This shot by Brian Davis is of one of the bedrooms at Colk Abbey. This photograph, taken in Dublin by Barry Reynolds, is of the Stephen's Green Centre. Known locally as the Wedding Cake Building, it hosts over 100 outlets. Mary Paul shows us the Frank Lloyd Wright Garden. Mary comments, the planters enhance the look of the amazing house designed by the famous American architect. Mary has also photographed this children's play area in the big greenhouse at Longwood Gardens. Everything is scaled down to child size. The Edward Elgar Monument, Hereford Cathedral, was photographed by John Nichols. Kentwell is a wonderful Tudor house set in a large estate at Long Melford in Suffolk. Though largely 16th century, its origins are much earlier, appearing in the Domesday Book. Photo by Mike Hilliard. The interior of Louth Parish Church is by Brian Davis. Andrew Holt's picture, Alhambra Arches, was taken in the Court of the Lions, Alhambra Palace, Granada. Hotel Staircase is by Rob Cayley. Tunnel of Light is Brian Dunster's title for this image. Michael Taylor shows us the Chapel of Christ in Gethsemane at Coventry Cathedral. The next 3 images were commended. First, this dramatic view of the remains of Furness Abbey is from the camera of Gisela Ville. Next, Valentina Carter took this image of St. Peter's Basilica, Rome. Third, Kevin Harvey shows us the X-arches of Wells Cathedral. The single runner-up is this infrared image of St. Lawrence's Church, West Wickham, by Bernard Foote. But the winner is Chicago Fireworks by the Lake by George Themelis.
Next, we have the category 2D to 3D conversions. In the section Conversions with Significant Author Input, there were 6 images from 2 entrants. In the Leopix Conversions section, there were 17 images from 10 entrants, and in the AI Creations section, 4 images from just 1 entrant.
David Hensel calls his conversions drawings because they're done by drawing with the Apple Pencil on an iPad. Starting with an identical pair, he freeviews whilst adjusting the position of lines in one of the images, seeing the 3D effect develop. This image is Tulip. David uses the Elastify function of the Art Studio app, which allows you to shift parts of an image about. This image he calls Still Life with Lemons. The image judged as runner-up in this category was David Hensel's Chrysanthemums. But the winner is Bernard Foote with Bugle Weed. Bernard comments, "This synthetic stereo was made using Zerine stacking software." The Water Garden Courtyard, the Generalife, Alhambra Palace in Granada, is by Paul Hutchins. Andy Raven calls this image a classic entrance. Little and Large is by Barry Aldous, a striking contrast in the size of insects settled on a potentilla, captured with a Panasonic GX7 mounted macro lens and Leopix converted. Keep to the Path, Crossing the Vallée Blanche is by William Thompson. He tells us the Vallée Blanche above Chamonix is the glacier crossing to Italy. This telephoto shot really highlights the crevasses and the path snaking through them. The next 3 images were commended. First, William Thompson shows us Leaf in Sunlight. Seen in Hayes Wood, a shaft of sunlight just lit up the leaf in amongst the darker part of the wood. Passion Flower is by Reg Self. And Rock of Gibraltar is by Paul Hutchins. The runner-up in this category is Nikolai Basov with Alpine Lake. And Nikolai says this lake is located at an altitude of 3150 metres above sea level in the northwestern part of Tajikistan. But the winner is Vanessa Grine with Seahorse Nebula. Carl Bromwich alone this year has made images created and converted to 3D using AI. This one is entitled A Dragon's Welcome. Carl's image Multiverse Fantasy was judged to be the best.
The next set of images is the work of selector David Kuntz. category Digital, Creative and Imaginative produced 19 images from 13 entrants.
Psycho Daisies are by Helen Boville. This was an iPhone cha-cha with post-processing. The Lonely Cyclist was captured in infrared by Stephen O'Neill. Bob Phillips shows us a 1920 city street scene. Reflections is a freehand stereoscopic drawing by Michael Taylor, and Michael insists that positively no AI was involved. 3D Test Card is by Neil Crick. Blooms of Yesteryear is by Clara Wang of Australia. Susan Pinsky gives us Minnetonka Train. Tonight is Vanessa Grind's title for this creation, which was commended. The next 3 images were all runners-up. First is Hoverbike 2 in Earthquake City by Bob Phillips. Next, this spooky offer is entitled One Bite, image by Vanessa Grind. And third, in this eclectic mix, Clara Wang shows us Fragmented Portals. The winner is Painting with Light from the camera of Bob Taylor.
In the slide category, 6 entrants submitted work, and we had 20 images.
The Green Woodpecker is by John Wakefield. Francis Heath has photographed Armed Forces Parade. This amusing picture is by Jeff Ogram and is entitled It's Not One of Ours, Mum. Francis Heath's image is called Schiehallion and Reservoir. Schiehallion is the mountain famously used in Neville Maskelyne's 18th century experiment to weigh the Earth. John Wakefield shows us The New Dog. Headcase is by Keith Webb, and he complains that his head was not very comfortable in the box. Francis Heath shows us Loch Lomond on the West Highland Way. Tassels of the Air is Jeff Ogram's title for this image. Francis Heath calls this image I Spy. The runner-up is Keith Webb with this picture of his cat Ozzy, who is fascinated by the camera. The winner is Michael Taylor with his image Field by Anthony Gormley. This shows the Field for the British Isles installation at Salisbury Cathedral cloisters. It was made up of thousands of clay sculptured figurines.
The category Digital, Human-Made Objects attracted 43 images from 27 stereographers.
This image of Mary with Jesus was taken by Bernard Foote at a church in Modena, Italy. This decorative urn was photographed by George Collin at Anglesey Abbey. Peter Blair photographed Ardner Merchant Foghorn. Battersea Baubles is by Bob Taylor. Rob Cayley shows us the Christmas Truce 1914 Memorial. This is at St Luke's Church, Liverpool. This plant-like structure was photographed at Troutmansdorf by Stephen O'Neill. Girish Jerram has captured the Watts Gallery Auditorium. Valentina Carter shows us The Web of Steel, a study of the Brooklyn Bridge's cables and wires. Bird Fake It is by Derek Medhurst. Derek says, this is a memorial in Westminster Abbey's nave to Henry Priestman by sculptor Francis Bird. Priestman was a British naval officer in the 17th century. Old Warden ironwork by George Collin shows the scroll at the end of a bridge parapet in the Swiss garden at Old Warden. Spanish gold was photographed by Andrew Holt. And Andrew also shows us Piles of Gormley. Well-Watered Flowers is Andy Raven's cryptic title for this image of an irrigation tank being installed. This fine study of the effects of time and weather Lee Pratt calls chain links. The 8-foot diameter driving wheel on Patrick Stirling's 8-foot single was photographed by Mike Hilliard at the National Railway Museum in York. This Herefordshire Romanesque church font was photographed at Erdesley by Bob Price. David Starkman has photographed this fine Buick Roadmaster. This commended image by Dennis Bursma is of an exhibit of a stonemason quarrying Oya stone with a pickaxe at the Oya Stone Museum. The next 4 images were runners-up. First, Bob Taylor takes us for a visit to a submarine engine room. Next is Electric Switches by Mary Paul. She comments, these decorative switches were converted into lighting in a Buffalo, New York restaurant. Third, Kevin Harvey introduces us to the Model Maker. And finally, Michael Taylor shows us Autumnal. But the winner is Miniature Steamer by Kevin Harvey, photographed on the Romney Hythe and Dymchurch Railway.
Selector Carlton Wright provided the next set of images. The final category is Digital Natural History. Here 15 entrants provided 30 images.
Gerland May spotted this shiny beetle in my garden. Stag Beetle is by Andrzej Jablonski. Bob Price has captured this hoverfly feasting on honeysuckle pollen. Azurite and malachite are both copper carbonate minerals. In this photo by John Chapman, there is an unusual formation where malachite, which is usually green, has formed a ram's horn on which has grown an azurite crystal. Sunny Day is by Kathy Reuter. Perfect Petals is Terry Turnber's title for this image. This handsome creature is a green lynx spider. Image by Lee Pratt. The stem beneath the flower of London Pride has microscopic hairs, each bearing a bright red spherical globule of sticky glue. Photograph by John Chapman. The next 5 images were commended. The first 2 are by Andrzej Jablonski. First, this dragonfly head. Second, according to Andrzej, this bee is coming into land. Also commended, Frosty Feather was spotted by Helen Boville. This was an iPhone Cha-Cha. The next 2 commended images are by Bob Price. Here he has caught these large red damselflies mating. And here he has photographed an August thorn moth. There were 2 runners-up in the natural history category. First, Orchid is by Bernard Foote. And second, Leaping Buck was caught by Andrzej Jablonski. And the winner is also Andrzej Jablonski with Red-Legged Shield Bug.
Each year, an image is selected, which is regarded as the stand-out image over all of the categories. Next, we look back at these overall winners from the past 6 years. Kevin Harvey won the award in 2018 with a figure in the arches. In 2019, Lee Pratt was the winner with Fishing in Colorado. In 2020, George Thilmelis was the winner with Hawk. And George was winner again in 2021 with Pet Fox. In 2022, Barry Aldous was the winner with Late Autumn Morning Walk. And in 2023, it was George Thilmelis with Eagle Close-Up. We now recap on the winners from each of the 2024 categories. And now we announce that the overall winner of the Stereoscopic Society Annual Exhibition 2024 is George Themelis with Chicago Fireworks by the Lake.